The mahogany boardroom door clicks shut behind me as I take my seat at the head of the conference table. 24 executives in tailored suits shift uncomfortably in their chairs, avoiding eye contact. The nameplate before me reads Madison Harper, CEO, Apex Industries. Through floor-to-ceiling windows, downtown Chicago sprawls beneath an October sky, steel and glass monuments to ambition reaching toward storm clouds. I'd love to know which corner of the globe you're watching from. And if this story speaks to you, make sure to subscribe. Tomorrow's video is one you absolutely can't miss. My father sits at the far end of the table, his face ashen, hands trembling slightly as he grips a manila folder containing termination papers. The same hands that once gestured dismissively when I pitched my first business idea 8 years ago in his cluttered garage office. The same voice that erupted in laughter when I suggested revolutionizing the manufacturing industry through sustainable automation. Ridiculous, he had said, not even looking up from his newspaper. Stick to what you know, Madison. Maybe get your teaching degree like your mother wanted. Today, those same words echo in the silence as I prepare to announce the restructuring of his life's work. The company he built from nothing now belongs to the daughter he never believed could build anything at all. The rain begins to streak the windows as I open the acquisition folder, and I wonder if he remembers that humid July evening when everything changed between us forever. Part 1. The world of illusion. July in Detroit feels like breathing through wet cotton, and the industrial district amplifies the oppressive heat with concrete and steel that bake under the relentless sun. Harper Manufacturing occupies a sprawling complex of weathered brick buildings that have housed 3 generations of blue-collar innovation. The main office sits like a crown atop the empire my grandfather Theodore Harper built with nothing but determination and a loan from his brother-in-law. I pull my Honda Civic into the visitor's parking space, the engine ticking as it cools beneath the canopy of a massive oak tree that has somehow survived decades of urban development. The contrast between my compact car and the row of gleaming pickup trucks belonging to the management team doesn't escape my notice. Each vehicle bears the scars and dust of honest work, chrome bumpers and toolboxes that speak to practical men solving practical problems. The receptionist, Mrs. Chen, greets me with the warm smile she's worn for 23 years behind that same walnut desk. Her computer monitor displays a screensaver of her grandchildren, and beside her keyboard sits a coffee mug that reads, "World's Greatest Grandma," in faded blue letters. "Madison, honey, your father's expecting you in his office. But I should warn you, he's been in one of his moods all week. The Kellerman contract fell through, and you know how he gets when deals don't close." I nod, adjusting the leather portfolio that contains 8 months of research, financial projections, and technical specifications. The weight of it feels insignificant compared to the weight of hope I'm carrying. Every page represents late nights. In my cramped apartment, every graph and chart a piece of my vision for transforming not just manufacturing, but the entire relationship between industry and environment. The hallway leading to my father's office showcases the company's history through black and white photographs mounted in simple frames. My grandfather in his foundry overalls, shaking hands with Detroit's industrial giants. My father as a young man, fresh from his engineering degree, standing beside the first automated assembly line Harper Manufacturing ever installed. 3 generations of innovation, each photograph documenting the evolution from manual labor to mechanized efficiency. My father's office door stands partially open, revealing the organized chaos that has defined his workspace for 30 years. Technical manuals stack precariously on metal filing cabinets, their spines worn smooth by countless consultations. Blueprint tubes lean against walls like ancient scrolls, each containing the architectural DNA of some manufacturing solution. His desk, a massive steel behemoth that looks like it was welded together in the shop downstairs, bears the coffee stains and pencil marks of a man who thinks with his hands as much as his mind. Richard Harper sits behind that desk, his reading glasses perched on his nose as he reviews what appears to be a quarterly report. His hair, once the same auburn shade as mine, has surrendered to distinguished gray that makes him look older than his 58 years. The sleeves of his work shirt are rolled up to reveal forearms that still bear the small scars and calluses of a man who learned his trade from the ground up. He looks up as I knock on the doorframe, and his expression shifts from concentration to that particular combination of affection and exasperation that fathers reserve for daughters whose ambitions exceed their perceived capabilities. "Madison, right on time. Come in, sit down. How's the job search going? Any leads on that marketing position with Cranston Industries?" I settle into the visitor's chair, a sturdy piece of furniture that has probably hosted thousands of meetings with suppliers, contractors, and employees. The leather portfolio rests on my lap as I gather my thoughts, knowing that the next few minutes will determine whether my father sees me as a potential partner or simply his idealistic daughter who needs gentle redirection toward more practical pursuits. "Actually, Dad, I wanted to talk to you about something else. I've been working on a business proposal, and I think it could revolutionize how manufacturing companies approach sustainability and efficiency. His eyebrows rise slightly, and he leans back in his chair with the patient expression of someone preparing to humor a child's elaborate explanation of why the sky is blue. The gesture is subtle but unmistakable, a physical manifestation of the generational gap that has always existed between his pragmatic worldview and my theoretical approach to problem solving. I'm listening, he says, though his attention drifts momentarily to the quarterly report still spread across his desk. I open the portfolio and extract the executive summary, a 5-page document that represents the distillation of everything I've learned about modern manufacturing challenges. The paper feels crisp between my fingers as I slide it across his desk, positioning it where the afternoon light from his office window illuminates the carefully chosen fonts and professional formatting. The proposal centers on integrated sustainable automation systems. Instead of treating environmental responsibility and operational efficiency as competing priorities, we create manufacturing processes that achieve both simultaneously through smart technology integration. My father picks up the document, his expression neutral as his eyes scan the opening paragraphs. I watch his face for signs of engagement, searching for any indication that the ideas resonating on the page might find purchase in his practical mind. The office falls silent except for the distant sounds of machinery humming in the production facility below us. The initial investment would be substantial, I continue, but the long-term returns include not just cost savings from energy efficiency, but also positioning for government contracts that increasingly require sustainability metrics. Plus, the technology creates new revenue streams through licensing opportunities. He sets the document down without finishing the first page, and I feel my carefully constructed confidence begin to crack around the edges. His expression has shifted from neutral to that particular form of paternal skepticism that suggests he's already formulating his response before fully considering the proposal. Madison, honey, this is. He pauses, searching for words that will let him down gently while maintaining the fiction that he's taking my ideas seriously. This is very thorough. You've obviously put a lot of work into this. The tone carries the same quality as compliments adults give to children's artwork, appreciating the effort while remaining unconvinced of the actual value. I feel myself deflating despite my determination to present this professionally, to bridge the gap between his world of practical solutions and my vision of transformative innovation. But, I prompt, knowing that the word hangs unspoken in the air between us. But manufacturing isn't about chasing the latest trends, sweetheart. Our clients need reliable, cost-effective solutions. They don't care about saving the world if it costs them productivity. And frankly, the kind of capital investment you're talking about here would bankrupt most companies our size. He taps the executive summary with his index finger, a gesture that somehow manages to diminish 8 months of research into little more than an academic exercise. The sound of his fingernail against the paper seems unusually loud in the suddenly tense atmosphere of his office. Plus, and I say this with love, you don't have any actual manufacturing experience. You've got your business degree, sure, but theory and practice are two very different things. The real world doesn't operate according to textbook principles. The words land with surgical precision, each one designed to deflate my arguments while maintaining the veneer of parental wisdom. I feel my cheeks warming with embarrassment and frustration, the familiar sensation of being reduced to an eager but naive child despite my 26 years and legitimate educational credentials. Dad, I've spent months researching this. I've talked to engineers, environmental specialists, even other manufacturing executives who are already implementing similar systems. The data supports every claim I'm making. He stands up from his desk, moving to the window that overlooks the production floor. From this vantage point, he can see the controlled chaos of his life's work, workers in safety gear operating machinery that transforms raw materials into finished products, forklifts navigating between pallets of inventory, the steam and sparks of industrial processes that have fed his family for 3 decades. Madison, look down there. You see those men and women? They've been doing this work for years, some of them for decades. They know what works and what doesn't. They don't need some fancy computer system telling them how to do their jobs more efficiently. His voice carries the weight of generational experience, the authority of someone who has navigated economic downturns, labor disputes, and technological changes that have reshaped entire industries. From his perspective, my proposal probably sounds like the latest in a long line of business school theories that promise revolutionary change while ignoring the complex realities of day-to-day operations. Besides, he continues, turning back to face me, even if this sustainable automation thing was feasible, which I'm not convinced it is, where would you get the startup capital? These kinds of ventures require serious money, not to mention connections in the industry that take years to develop. The question reveals the fundamental assumption underlying his entire response, that I'm asking for his help rather than presenting a viable business opportunity. In his mind, this conversation isn't about evaluating a proposal between equals, but about a father explaining why his daughter's dreams aren't realistic. I close the portfolio, feeling the weight of rejection settling over me like a heavy blanket. The carefully prepared follow-up materials, the financial projections that account for various market scenarios, the letters of intent from potential early adopters, none of it matters if he can't see past his preconceptions about my capabilities. I wasn't asking for startup capital, Dad. I was hoping you might consider partnering with me. Your manufacturing expertise combined with my research could create something really innovative. The laughter that escapes his lips isn't cruel, but it carries the unconscious condescension of someone who finds genuine amusement in what he perceives as youthful naivety. The sound fills his office like a physical presence, bouncing off the technical manuals and framed photographs of 3 generations of Harper innovation. Madison, sweetheart, I appreciate your enthusiasm, I really do. But this isn't how business works. You can't just revolutionize an entire industry because you wrote a nice proposal. Manufacturing is about margins, contracts, and keeping customers happy with proven solutions. He moves back to his desk, settling into his chair with the satisfied expression of someone who has just delivered wisdom to the next generation. The quarterly report reclaims his attention as he speaks, his voice taking on the tone adults use when wrapping up conversations with children. Why don't you focus on finding a real job first? Get some actual experience in the business world. Maybe in a few years, after you've learned how things really work, we can talk about your ideas again. The dismissal is complete, delivered with enough parental affection to soften the blow while making it clear that my proposal has been filed away in the same mental category as childhood dreams of becoming an astronaut or a famous artist. I stand up, the leather portfolio feeling heavier than when I arrived, weighted now with the certainty that my father will never see me as anything more than his idealistic daughter who needs guidance toward more practical pursuits. Thanks for your time, Dad, I manage, my voice steady despite the disappointment coursing through me. Anytime, honey. And Madison? Don't get discouraged. Every entrepreneur faces rejection. The key is learning to distinguish between good ideas and pipe dreams. I nod and move toward the office door, pausing for a moment to look back at the man who has just unknowingly motivated me to prove him wrong in ways he cannot yet imagine. The photographs on his wall chronicle 3 generations of Harper innovation, but they don't show the 4th generation that will redefine what innovation means in the 21st century. A lot of love and effort went into bringing this story to life. If you're enjoying it, we'd be so grateful if you'd subscribe to our channel. Now, back to where we left off. The hallway seems longer on the way out, each step carrying me further from the family business that will never see me as anything more than Theodore Harper's granddaughter and Richard Harper's naive daughter. Mrs. Chen waves goodbye as I pass. Her desk, her warm smile unchanged despite the tension that must be radiating from my posture. The July heat hits me like a physical force as I exit the building, the industrial air thick with the scent of metal shavings and machine oil. My Honda Civic sits exactly where I left it, humble and practical beneath the shade of that ancient oak tree. As I slide behind the wheel, I catch my reflection in the rearview mirror, a young woman with auburn hair and determination in her eyes, carrying a portfolio full of rejected dreams and the seeds of something far greater than anything her father could imagine. The engine turns over on the second try, and I pull out of the visitor's parking space for what I know will be the last time as Richard Harper's daughter seeking approval. The next time I return to this complex, it will be as something else entirely, a competitor, an innovator, and eventually, an owner. The coffee shop on Woodward Avenue becomes my temporary office for the next 3 weeks, a cramped corner table, where I nurse endless cups of Ethiopian roast while rebuilding my shattered confidence one internet search at a time. The laptop screen glows against my face as I dive deeper into sustainable manufacturing research, this time with a different purpose. Instead of seeking my father's approval, I'm hunting for proof that my vision isn't just theoretically sound but practically inevitable. The breakthrough comes on a Tuesday morning when I stumble across a procurement notice buried in the Federal Register. The Department of Defense is requesting proposals for a massive manufacturing contract worth $800 million over 5 years. The requirements read like a checklist of everything I had outlined in my rejected proposal. Sustainable processes, automated quality control, environmental compliance, and domestic production capabilities. My hands tremble slightly as I download the full solicitation document. This isn't just any government contract. It's exactly the kind of transformative opportunity that could launch a company from startup to industry leader overnight. More importantly, the deadline for submissions is in 6 months, which means established manufacturers are already positioning themselves to compete. I spend the remainder of that day researching the likely bidders, following corporate press releases and industry publications that hint at who might be preparing proposals. The usual suspects appear repeatedly: Kellerman Industries, Morrison Manufacturing, Apex Industrial Solutions. Each company boasts decades of government contracting experience and the kind of established relationships that typically determine winners in federal procurement competitions. Harper Manufacturing doesn't appear in any of the speculation articles. That evening, I drive past my father's facility during shift change, watching streams of workers emerge from the main building into the parking lot. The sight of their tired faces and work-stained clothing reminds me of the conversation we had just weeks earlier, when he insisted that manufacturing was about keeping customers happy with proven solutions rather than chasing innovative approaches. A terrible suspicion begins forming in my mind as I consider the disconnect between his dismissive attitude toward sustainable automation and the massive federal opportunity that depends entirely on those same technologies. Either my father is completely unaware of the biggest manufacturing contract in decades, or he's aware and has chosen not to pursue it for reasons he didn't share with me. The next morning finds me back in the coffee shop, this time armed with a more specific research agenda. I begin tracking Harper Manufacturing's recent activities through public records, industry databases, and social media mentions. What I discover makes my stomach clench with a mixture of anger and disbelief. 3 months ago, just 2 months before our meeting in his office, my father attended the National Manufacturing Association conference in Phoenix. The conference agenda, still available online, includes a detailed presentation about the upcoming Department of Defense contract. Not only did he attend the conference, but according to the participant list, he served on a panel discussion titled "Positioning Midsize Manufacturers for Federal Opportunities." The coffee grows cold in my cup as I absorb the implications. My father knew about the contract when I pitched my sustainable automation proposal. He knew that everything I was suggesting aligned perfectly with federal requirements worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Yet he sat in his office and laughed at my ideas, dismissing them as impractical pipe dreams while possessing information that proved exactly the opposite. I scroll through more conference materials, finding photographs from networking events and panel discussions. There's my father, shaking hands with procurement officials and defense contractors, his expression serious and engaged in a way that contrasts sharply with the amused dismissal he showed toward my proposal. The betrayal cuts deeper than simple rejection. This wasn't a father protecting his daughter from unrealistic expectations. This was someone actively concealing information that could have transformed both our careers, ensuring that I remained ignorant of opportunities that might prove my theories correct. But why? What possible motivation could he have for hiding this information from me? The answer emerges through a different search entirely. While investigating Harper Manufacturing's financial status through public business records, I discover something that makes my blood pressure spike: a series of equipment loans totaling nearly $2 million, all secured within the past 6 months. The loan documentation, accessible through state business filings, reveals that my father has been quietly modernizing his production capabilities. New automated assembly systems, environmental monitoring equipment, upgraded quality control technology, essentially everything required to compete for the exact contract he dismissed as unrealistic when I suggested it. I lean back in the coffee shop chair, feeling as though the floor has shifted beneath me. Not only did my father know about the federal opportunity, but he's been systematically positioning Harper Manufacturing to pursue it while simultaneously discouraging me from developing competing technologies. Every piece of equipment he's purchased aligns with specifications I had researched and included in my proposal. The laptop screen blurs as tears of frustration cloud my vision. The man who raised me to value honesty and hard work has been playing a game I didn't even know existed, using my trust against me to eliminate potential competition from his own daughter. I force myself to dig deeper, following the paper trail of his recent business activities. The equipment suppliers he's chosen, the consulting contracts he's signed, even the engineering firms he's hired, all of them are recognized leaders in sustainable manufacturing automation. Every decision represents a validation of the approach he ridiculed in his office. A new document catches my attention: a partnership agreement between Harper Manufacturing and Kellerman Industries, dated just 2 weeks after our meeting. The terms are clearly outlined in the filing. Harper will serve as a subcontractor for Kellerman's Department of Defense proposal, providing specialized automation services under Kellerman's prime contract management. The pieces fall into place with sickening clarity. My father didn't reject my proposal because it was impractical. He rejected it because he was already planning to implement a similar approach through partnership with one of his established competitors. My research, my insights, my months of development work, all of it has been appropriated without acknowledgement or compensation. I close the laptop and stare out the coffee shop window at the Detroit traffic flowing past in endless streams. The city that built America's industrial foundation surrounds me, a landscape of innovation and reinvention that has always adapted to changing times. Yet here I sit, discovering that my own father represents the kind of closed-minded resistance to change that has stifled so many potential breakthroughs. The phone in my pocket buzzes with a text message from my mother. "Dad mentioned you stopped by the office. He's proud of you for exploring your interests. Maybe we can all have dinner soon." The casual tone, the complete ignorance of what actually transpired between us, drives home how thoroughly I've been isolated from information that should have been shared freely within our family. Even my mother doesn't know that her husband is pursuing the exact strategies he dismissed when his daughter proposed them. I draft several responses to her text, each one more bitter than the last, before finally typing, "Thanks, Mom. I'm pretty busy with work stuff right now, but maybe in a few weeks." The lies we tell to maintain family harmony feel heavier than usual as I send the message and return the phone to my pocket. How do you confront someone who has systematically undermined your professional development while maintaining the fiction of supportive parental guidance? More importantly, what do you do when you discover that your father's business success might depend on appropriating ideas he refused to credit to their actual source? I spend the rest of the afternoon researching intellectual property law, trying to understand whether the concepts I developed in my proposal carry any legal protection. The answer, predictably, is complicated. While specific technical innovations might be patentable, general business strategies and approaches typically can't be claimed as proprietary information. This means my father is legally free to implement sustainable automation strategies regardless of where he first encountered them. The fact that he learned about their viability through my research doesn't create any obligation to acknowledge that contribution or share any resulting benefits. The legal system, it seems, offers no remedy for the kind of intellectual betrayal I've experienced. Justice, if it exists, will have to come from other sources. As evening approaches, I make a decision that will reshape everything that follows. Instead of confronting my father directly or retreating into wounded silence, I choose a third option. I will beat him at his own game using advantages he doesn't know I possess. The Department of Defense contract represents more than just a business opportunity. It's a chance to prove that innovative thinking can triumph over entrenched advantages, that merit can overcome connections, and that the daughter he underestimated possesses capabilities he never bothered to recognize. I reopen the laptop and begin a new kind of research, this time focused on understanding exactly how federal contracting works, what resources are available to new businesses, and how someone with no industry connections might successfully compete against established players. The coffee shop closes around me as I work, the staff politely suggesting that I might want to continue my research elsewhere. I pack up my materials and drive home through darkened streets, my mind already formulating the first steps of a plan that will require everything I've learned about business, technology, and human psychology. Back in my apartment, I spread the Department of Defense solicitation documents across my dining room table like battle plans. The requirements are demanding but achievable. The timeline is tight but manageable. The competition will be fierce but not necessarily insurmountable. Most importantly, I now possess something my father's established competitors lack: detailed knowledge of their strategies, their partnerships, and their assumptions about who poses a legitimate threat. He wanted to keep me ignorant and dependent, treating me like a naive dreamer whose ideas weren't worth serious consideration. Instead, his deception has taught me lessons about strategic thinking and competitive intelligence that no business school could provide. Tomorrow, I will begin building the company that will ultimately acquire his. Tonight, I allow myself to feel the full weight of his betrayal, transforming that pain into the fuel that will drive every decision I make over the next several years. The apartment feels different somehow, as though I'm seeing it for the first time with adult eyes. This isn't just the place where I live. It's the headquarters of an enterprise that doesn't yet exist but will eventually reshape an entire industry. Outside my window, Detroit sleeps under a blanket of city lights, the industrial heart of America beating steadily through another night. Somewhere across town, my father probably assumes his daughter has accepted his wisdom and moved on to more practical pursuits. That he has no idea that his betrayal has just created his most formidable competitor, the gathering storm. The industrial warehouse district of Southwest Detroit looks like a graveyard for abandoned dreams on the morning I sign the lease for my new headquarters. Cracked concrete stretches between skeletal remains of factories that once employed thousands, their broken windows reflecting a sky the color of old steel. The building I've chosen sits among these monuments to industrial decline like a seed, waiting for the right conditions to grow. 22,000 square feet of raw space for $1,800 a month. The previous tenant manufactured automotive parts until overseas competition drove them into bankruptcy 3 years ago. Now their legacy consists of oil stains on the concrete floor and mounting brackets still bolted to walls that once supported heavy machinery. My footsteps echo in the cavernous emptiness as I walk through what will become Harper Dynamics' first facility. The name itself represents a calculated provocation, similar enough to Harper Manufacturing to remind my father of our connection, different enough to establish independent identity. Every decision from this moment forward carries strategic weight that extends far beyond immediate practicality. The irony isn't lost on me that I'm building my company in the ruins of someone else's failure. Detroit specializes in this kind of resurrection, turning abandoned infrastructure into launching platforms for the next generation of American manufacturing. The city understands reinvention in ways that more prosperous places never could. My phone buzzes with a text from Carlos Mendoza, the mechanical engineer I recruited from Ford's Sustainable Manufacturing division. His message includes a photograph of the prototype automation controller we've been developing in his garage workshop, first successful test run. 20% efficiency gain over baseline. When do we move to the real lab? I smile despite the overwhelming nature of everything. That needs to happen over the next 4 months. Carlos brings 15 years of automotive engineering experience and a frustration with corporate bureaucracy that makes him perfect for a startup environment. More importantly, he believes in the vision of sustainable automation with the passion of someone who has spent years watching good ideas die in committee meetings. The second team member, Dr. Sarah Kim, represents an even bigger coup. Her background includes advanced degrees in environmental engineering and industrial design, plus 5 years developing clean manufacturing processes for the Environmental Protection Agency. When I approached her about joining Harper Dynamics, she was preparing to leave the federal government due to frustration with political interference in scientific research. Private industry moves faster, she had said during our interview at a coffee shop near the EPA regional office. Government work means waiting 2 years for approval to test ideas that should be implemented immediately. Your approach could actually make a difference. Her expertise in regulatory compliance gives us a crucial advantage in pursuing the Department of Defense contract. While my father's team focuses on traditional manufacturing metrics, Sarah understands the environmental reporting requirements that will ultimately determine contract awards. Federal procurement increasingly favors suppliers who exceed sustainability standards rather than merely meeting minimum requirements. The third crucial addition comes through an unexpected connection. Jennifer Walsh spent 8 years as a contracts officer with the Defense Logistics Agency before transitioning to private consulting. Her insider knowledge of federal procurement processes provides guidance that no amount of research could replace. Most companies approach government contracting like it's just another sales process, Jennifer explains during our weekly strategy meeting in my apartment. They submit proposals based on technical capabilities and competitive pricing, then wonder why contracts go to companies with inferior solutions. Federal procurement is about understanding bureaucratic priorities, not just meeting specifications. Her insights reshape our entire approach to the Department of Defense opportunity. Instead of simply demonstrating technical superiority, we need to position Harper Dynamics as the solution to problems procurement officers didn't know they had. This means anticipating regulatory changes, understanding political pressures, and presenting our innovations as risk reduction rather than revolutionary advancement. The team meetings take place around my dining room table every Tuesday evening, surrounded by takeout containers and technical documentation that grows more comprehensive each week. These sessions feel like plotting a revolution, for professionals united by shared frustration with systems that resist innovation despite crying out for exactly the solutions we're developing. During one particularly productive meeting, Carlos spreads engineering drawings across the table like military maps. The modular design allows rapid reconfiguration for different manufacturing requirements, he explains, pointing to connection points that enable seamless integration between automated systems. Instead of dedicated production lines that can only manufacture specific products, we create adaptive manufacturing environments that adjust to changing demands. Sarah adds environmental context to his technical explanations. Each module includes real-time emissions monitoring and waste reduction protocols. The system doesn't just meet environmental standards, it provides continuous documentation that regulatory agencies can audit remotely. For government contractors, this eliminates compliance uncertainty that traditionally adds weeks to production schedules. Jennifer translates their innovations into procurement language. Federal acquisition regulations prioritize suppliers who demonstrate operational resilience. Your adaptive manufacturing capability addresses supply chain disruptions that have plagued defense contracts for years. Instead of selling automation, we're selling strategic flexibility. The synergy between their different perspectives creates solutions none of us could develop individually. while my father's established team relies on incremental improvements. To proven approaches, we're designing entirely new methodologies that redefine manufacturing efficiency, but building innovative technology represents only half the challenge. The other half involves securing the capital, equipment, and facilities necessary to compete against companies with decades of established relationships and proven track records. This is where Jennifer's procurement experience proves invaluable. She guides us through the labyrinthine process of obtaining small business certifications that provide competitive advantages in federal contracting. Woman-owned small business status, combined with our sustainable manufacturing focus, qualifies Harper Dynamics for set-aside contracts and preferential consideration that can overcome the disadvantages of competing against established players. Your father's partnership with Kellerman Industries actually works in our favor, Jennifer explains during one late-night planning session. Large companies pursuing government contracts face scrutiny about monopolistic practices. Procurement officers actively seek qualified small businesses that can provide competitive alternatives to industry giants. The federal contracting system, designed to prevent concentration of defense manufacturing among a few dominant suppliers, creates opportunities for innovative newcomers willing to navigate bureaucratic complexity. While my father focuses on leveraging established relationships, we're positioning ourselves to benefit from regulatory requirements that favor diversity in the supplier base. Meanwhile, across town, my father's preparations for the Department of Defense contract proceed with the confidence of someone who assumes victory is inevitable. Industry publications report Harper Manufacturing's new equipment acquisitions and partnership announcements with the tone of journalists covering a foregone conclusion. Richard Harper has become the local symbol of mid-size manufacturers successfully adapting to federal opportunities. The Detroit Business Journal features him in a cover story titled, "Retooling for Success: How Local Manufacturers Are Winning Government Contracts." The article includes a photograph of him standing beside gleaming new automation equipment, his expression radiating the satisfaction of someone whose strategic planning is paying dividends. Government contracting requires patience and systematic preparation, he tells the interviewer. Companies that chase quick solutions usually find themselves overwhelmed by regulatory requirements they didn't anticipate. Success comes from understanding that federal procurement favors experienced suppliers with proven capabilities. Reading the article from my empty warehouse space, I feel a mixture of admiration and anger toward the man who taught me to value strategic thinking while systematically excluding me from strategic conversations. His insights about government contracting reflect genuine wisdom earned through years of navigating complex business environments. Yet his inability to recognize similar capabilities in his daughter demonstrates the kind of blind spots that create opportunities for competitors who see more clearly. The article mentions Harper Manufacturing's partnership with Kellerman Industries in glowing terms, describing it as a collaboration between complementary strengths that positions both companies for sustained growth in defense markets. What the journalist doesn't know is that this partnership represents my father's attempt to appropriate innovations he rejected when I proposed them, repackaging my research as established industry wisdom, but his public confidence serves my purposes by establishing clear benchmarks for success. Every capability he claims, every advantage he touts, every strategic insight he shares becomes a target for Harper Dynamics to exceed. The competition between us will be measured not just in contract awards, but in validation of fundamentally different approaches to innovation and leadership. As autumn progresses, my daily routine becomes a carefully orchestrated balance between building operational capabilities and maintaining the illusion of casual job searching that prevents my family from discovering my true activities. My parents assume I'm still looking for traditional employment, occasionally asking about my progress with the distracted concern of people whose minds are occupied by more pressing matters. "Any luck with those marketing positions?" my mother asks during our weekly phone call, her voice carrying the gentle worry that mothers reserve for adult children whose career paths seem uncertain. "Still exploring options," I reply, which technically qualifies as truth since I'm exploring the option of building a manufacturing company that will ultimately acquire my father's business. The market is pretty competitive right now. These conversations require careful navigation between honesty and strategy. I can't reveal my plans without risking premature interference, yet I refuse to lie outright to people who raised me to value integrity. The solution involves selective disclosure and strategic vagueness that maintains family relationships while protecting competitive advantages. My father, when he appears in these conversations, expresses the kind of benevolent concern that successful people show toward family members whose ambitions exceed their apparent capabilities. He suggests networking opportunities, recommends industry contacts who might provide guidance, and occasionally mentions entry-level positions at companies he considers appropriate for someone with my background. Madison should consider that position with Cranston Industries, he tells my mother during a conversation I overhear through her phone speaker. They're looking for someone to handle their government relations program. It would be good experience for her, and Tom Cranston is a friend of mine. The suggestion that I should seek employment with his business associates, leveraging his recommendations to access opportunities one couldn't obtain independently, reveals his fundamental assumptions about my capabilities and prospects. In his worldview, my success depends on connections he provides rather than value I create. These assumptions become the foundation for strategies he cannot anticipate. While he positions himself as a generous mentor offering guidance to his struggling daughter, I'm systematically developing capabilities that will transform our relationship from dependency to competition. The transformation requires more than technical innovation or strategic planning. It demands a complete reconstruction of my professional identity, from someone seeking approval to someone providing solutions, from daughter to CEO, from follower to leader. Every evening spent in the empty warehouse, every late-night design session with my team, every hour invested in understanding federal procurement regulations represents a choice to define myself through actions rather than relationships. The woman who sat in my father's office 6 months ago, hoping for validation, no longer exists. In her place stands someone who understands that respect must be earned rather than inherited, that innovation requires courage to challenge established assumptions, and that the most satisfying victories come from proving wrong those who claimed to know your limitations. The gathering storm builds with methodical precision, each element carefully positioned for maximum impact. When the moment for revelation finally arrives, the Department of Defense proposal deadline approaches like an approaching thunderstorm, visible from miles away but impossible to stop once it arrives. February 15th becomes the date that will determine whether 8 months of preparation translate into legitimate competition or expensive education in the realities of federal contracting. Our final proposal weighs 14 pounds when printed and bound according to federal submission requirements. Each page represents countless hours of research, engineering calculations, environmental impact assessments, and cost projections that position Harper Dynamics not just as a capable supplier, but as the solution to problems the Department of Defense hasn't yet realized it faces. Jennifer Walsh reviews the submission checklist one final time in our makeshift conference room, her federal contracting experience evident in the methodical way she verifies each requirement against our documentation. Technical specifications, complete. Environmental compliance certifications, complete. Small business qualifications, complete. Past performance references. She pauses, looking up from the checklist with concern. This is where we're vulnerable, she admits. Established contractors submit past performance evaluations from previous government work. We're asking procurement officers to trust a company with no federal contracting history to execute an $800 million program. Carlos Mendoza looks up from the prototype automation controller he's been fine-tuning for our presentation. Our technology demonstrations speak for themselves. When they see 30% efficiency improvements in real-time testing, past performance becomes secondary to proven capability. Dr. Sarah Kim adds her perspective while organizing environmental compliance documentation. Federal procurement priorities have shifted dramatically toward sustainability metrics. Established contractors are retrofitting old approaches to meet new requirements. We designed our system from the ground up to exceed environmental standards that won't be mandatory for another 5 years. Their confidence helps steady my nerves as we prepare for what might be our only opportunity to prove that innovation can triumph over institutional inertia. The proposal submission represents more than a business opportunity. It's a test of whether merit can overcome connections, whether vision can surpass experience, and whether a daughter dismissed by her father can succeed where he expects her to fail. The federal building in downtown Detroit feels like a temple to bureaucratic process, all marble columns and security checkpoints that remind visitors they're entering a realm where different rules apply. Jennifer guides us through the submission procedure with the practiced efficiency of someone who has navigated these corridors dozens of times. Room 847, she says, checking the proposal submission notice for the 3rd time. Defense Logistics Agency Procurement Office. We have until 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for delivery. The elevator carries us toward a moment that will reshape everything that follows. Win or lose, submitting this proposal marks the point where Harper Dynamics transitions from theoretical concept to active competitor in my father's industry. There will be no returning to the comfortable fiction that I'm still searching for traditional employment. The procurement office resembles a fortress of filing cabinets and computer terminals, staffed by civil servants whose job involves managing the complex process of spending taxpayer money on military equipment and services. The woman behind the reception desk examines our submission with professional detachment, checking identification against authorized representative lists and verifying that our documentation meets formatting requirements. Harper Dynamics, Sustainable Manufacturing Automation Systems, she reads from our cover sheet. Primary contact Madison Harper, Chief Executive Officer. She stamps each copy with the official receipt marking that transforms our proposal from hopeful speculation into formal competition. Walking out of the federal building feels like stepping into an alternate reality where consequences have been set in motion that cannot be reversed. The proposal now exists within a system designed to evaluate competing solutions according to established criteria, a process that operates independently of personal relationships or family dynamics. 3 weeks later, the first indication that our submission has been taken seriously arrives through an encrypted email to Jennifer's secure government communication account. The message contains just 2 sentences: initial technical evaluation complete. Harper Dynamics selected for oral presentation phase. Presentation scheduled March 18, 0900 hours, Defense Logistics Agency Headquarters, Columbus, Ohio. This is unprecedented, Jennifer says, reading the message for the 4th time. Oral presentations are typically reserved for the top 3 proposals. Out of 37 submissions, they want to hear from us directly. Carlos whoops with excitement, his engineering background not quite preparing him for the diplomatic restraint that federal contracting requires. 30% efficiency improvements tend to get attention. When procurement officers see those numbers, they want to understand how we achieved them. Sarah maintains her scientific objectivity, but I catch the smile she tries to suppress. Environmental compliance scores probably pushed us into the top tier. Most proposals meet minimum requirements. Ours exceeds standards that won't be mandatory until 2028. The oral presentation represents both opportunity and risk that extends far beyond our immediate business prospects. Success could establish Harper Dynamics as a legitimate player in defense manufacturing. Failure might confirm industry assumptions about inexperienced companies overreaching their capabilities. More personally, the presentation date coincides with my father's annual board meeting, where Harper manufacturing directors review the previous year's performance and approve strategic plans for the coming fiscal year. Industry tradition suggests he'll use that meeting to announce his Department of Defense proposal submission and expected contract award. The irony of timing seems almost too perfect to be coincidental. Preparation for the oral presentation consumes every waking moment of the 3 weeks between notification and delivery. Our technical demonstrations must convince procurement officers that Harper Dynamics can execute solutions we've only tested in prototype form. Our business case must prove that a company with no federal contracting history can manage a program larger than most established manufacturers handle annually. Jennifer coaches us through the peculiar etiquette of federal presentations, where technical excellence must be communicated through bureaucratic language that avoids appearing threatening to established relationships. Procurement officers want innovation, but they also want certainty. Your job is proving that cutting-edge technology can be delivered through reliable processes. We practice our presentation in the warehouse every evening, using a projector borrowed from Carlos's brother-in-law to simulate the formal environment we'll encounter in Columbus. Each rehearsal reveals improvements in both content and delivery, building confidence that our message can resonate with decision-makers whose primary concern involves minimizing risk while maximizing capability. The presentation slides evolve through dozens of iterations, balancing technical detail with strategic overview, cost justification with performance metrics, innovation with reliability. Every element must support the central argument that Harper Dynamics represents the future of sustainable manufacturing, delivered through proven methodologies that exceed current industry standards. Meanwhile, across town, my father's preparations for his board meeting proceed with the measured confidence of someone whose success seems assured. The Detroit Business Journal publishes another article about Harper Manufacturing's government contracting prospects, this one featuring quotes from Kellerman Industries executives praising their partnership arrangement. Richard Harper brings exactly the kind of manufacturing expertise that large-scale defense contracts require, says Michael Kellerman, the company's chief operating officer. His facility modernization program positions Harper Manufacturing as a leader in automated production systems. Reading the article from my warehouse office, I feel the familiar mixture of pride and frustration that my father's accomplishments inspire. His strategic thinking and systematic approach to business development reflect genuine expertise that I respect despite our professional disagreements. Yet his inability to recognize similar capabilities in his daughter continues to create opportunities for competition he doesn't anticipate. The article includes a sidebar about challenges facing mid-size manufacturers pursuing federal contracts, highlighting regulatory complexity and capital requirements that favor established players. Government procurement typically rewards experience over innovation, notes a procurement consultant quoted in the piece. New companies face almost insurmountable barriers to entry in defense markets. Such conventional wisdom becomes motivation, rather than discouragement for someone determined to prove that merit can overcome institutional advantages. The experts who declare certain achievements impossible often fail to account for competitors who refuse to accept their limitations. March 18th arrives with the kind of bitter Ohio wind that makes even short walks feel like endurance tests. The Defense Logistics Agency headquarters in Columbus occupies a sprawling complex of buildings that house the bureaucratic machinery responsible for supplying American military forces worldwide. Security procedures require 45 minutes of documentation review and background verification before we're cleared to enter the presentation facility, the conference room where our future will be determined. Could have been designed by someone who read textbooks about intimidating environments but never actually experienced intimidation personally. Fluorescent lighting reflects off a polished table large enough to seat 20 people, surrounded by chairs that seem deliberately uncomfortable. American flags stand at attention in each corner, silent witnesses to decisions that will affect national security and industrial competitiveness. The evaluation panel consists of 5 procurement officers whose expressions reveal nothing about their expectations or biases. Their backgrounds span military logistics, industrial engineering, environmental compliance, and contract administration, exactly the expertise necessary to evaluate proposals like ours from multiple perspectives simultaneously. Jennifer handles the formal introductions with diplomatic precision while Carlos and Sarah arrange our demonstration equipment according to the setup plan we've rehearsed dozens of times. The automation controller sits on the conference table like a piece of modern sculpture, its sleek design contrasting sharply with the institutional decor that surrounds it. I take my position at the head of the table, feeling the weight of 8 months' preparation condensed into the next 60 minutes. The presentation will either validate everything we've built or confirm that inexperience cannot overcome established industry relationships regardless of technical superiority. Good morning, I begin, my voice steadier than I expected. Harper Dynamics appreciates the opportunity to present our sustainable manufacturing automation system. Our solution addresses traditional defense procurement challenges while exceeding environmental standards that represent the future of American manufacturing. The first slides establish context through industry statistics that highlight inefficiencies in current defense manufacturing processes. Cost overruns, schedule delays, quality control failures, problems that persist across multiple contractors and programs despite decades of process improvement efforts. Existing approaches treat these issues as separate challenges requiring individual solutions, I explain, advancing to technical diagrams that illustrate our integrated methodology. Harper Dynamics developed a comprehensive system that addresses root causes rather than symptoms, delivering simultaneous improvements in efficiency, quality, and environmental compliance. Carlos takes over for the technical demonstration, his engineering expertise evident in the fluid way he explains complex automation processes using language accessible to non-technical evaluators. The prototype controller responds to his commands with precision that makes abstract concepts tangible, showing rather than merely describing the capabilities we're proposing. Real-time process optimization, he says, manipulating control parameters that adjust manufacturing variables automatically. The system learns from each production cycle, continuously improving efficiency while maintaining quality standards that exceed current industry benchmarks. Sarah follows with environmental compliance documentation that transforms regulatory requirements from bureaucratic obstacles into competitive advantages. Her presentation style combines scientific rigor with practical application, showing how environmental excellence enhances rather than constrains manufacturing effectiveness. Current regulations represent minimum acceptable standards, she explains, displaying graphs that compare industry averages with our projected performance. Harper Dynamics exceeds anticipated 2030 requirements today, positioning the Department of Defense ahead of regulatory changes rather than scrambling to achieve compliance. The procurement officers ask questions that probe both technical capabilities and business sustainability, testing our understanding of federal contracting realities while evaluating our ability to deliver promised performance. Their inquiries reveal the kind of systematic thinking that separates successful government suppliers from companies that underestimate bureaucratic complexity. Small businesses often struggle with the administrative requirements of large federal contracts, observes the lead procurement officer. How does Harper Dynamics plan to manage program reporting, quality assurance, and regulatory compliance across an $800 million engagement? Jennifer fields the question with confidence earned through years of federal contracting experience. Our team includes former government procurement officials who understand administrative requirements from both supplier and customer perspectives. We've designed business processes specifically to exceed federal reporting standards while maintaining operational efficiency. The hour allocated for our presentation passes with remarkable speed, each segment flowing into the next according to our rehearsed timeline. As we pack our demonstration equipment, the procurement officers provide no indication of their assessment beyond professional courtesy and appreciation for our thoroughness. The evaluation process continues for approximately 6 weeks, the lead officer explains. All competing proposals receive equal consideration according to established criteria. Results will be communicated through official channels once final decisions are approved. Walking out of the Defense Logistics Agency headquarters, I feel the peculiar combination of exhaustion and exhilaration that follows high-stakes performances. We presented our best possible case using every advantage our preparation could provide. The outcome now depends on factors beyond our control: how our proposal compares with competing submissions, whether procurement officers value innovation over experience, and whether federal acquisition policies truly support the small business participation they claim to encourage. The drive back to Detroit provides time to process what just occurred and consider what comes next regardless of the presentation outcome. Win or lose, Harper Dynamics has established itself as a legitimate competitor in an industry that previously existed only as family background. My father's assumptions about my capabilities and prospects have been tested through actual competition rather than theoretical speculation. More importantly, the company we've built represents something larger than personal vindication or family dynamics. It embodies an approach to manufacturing that prioritizes sustainability, efficiency, and innovation over traditional relationships and established processes. Whether or not we win the Department of Defense contract, those principles will guide everything that follows. The warehouse feels different when we return from Columbus, somehow more substantial and permanent despite its unchanged appearance. The empty spaces that once seemed daunting now feel full of potential, ready to house the manufacturing capabilities we'll need regardless of which contracts we pursue. That evening, my phone buzzes with a text from my mother. Dad's board meeting went very well today. He's optimistic about some big opportunities coming up. Maybe we can all celebrate together soon? I stare at the message for several minutes before responding, "That sounds great, Mom. I have some news to share too." The gathering storm has reached the moment when lightning becomes inevitable. The encrypted email arrives at 6:47 a.m. on a Tuesday morning that will forever divide my life into before and after. Jennifer's secure government communication account chimes with the distinctive tone reserved for official Defense Logistics Agency correspondence, and I feel my heart rate spike before I even read the subject line: Contract Award Notification. Harper Dynamics Incorporated. My hands shake slightly as I open the message on my laptop in the warehouse office that has become our unofficial headquarters. The formal language of federal procurement cannot disguise the magnitude of what I'm reading. The Department of Defense has selected Harper Dynamics as the prime contractor for sustainable manufacturing automation systems. Contract value: $847 million over 60 months. Performance period begins July 1st. I read the notification 3 times before the reality penetrates fully. We didn't just win a contract, we won the largest contract. The Department of Defense chose a company that didn't exist 8 months ago over established manufacturers with decades of experience and billions in annual revenue. Carlos arrives 30 minutes later to find me staring at the email on my laptop screen, still processing the implications of what just occurred. His expression shifts from curiosity to shock as I turn the laptop toward him so he can read the notification himself. "This is real?" he asks, his voice barely above a whisper. "We actually won?" According to the Defense Logistics Agency, Harper Dynamics is now a prime contractor for the United States military, I reply, feeling surreal speaking those words aloud. We have 6 weeks to establish manufacturing capabilities that can support an $800 million program. Sarah and Jennifer arrive within minutes of my phone calls, and our impromptu celebration in the empty warehouse feels both jubilant and overwhelming. We've achieved something unprecedented in federal contracting, but success brings responsibilities that will test every aspect of our business planning and personal commitment. The notification email includes a conference call scheduled for 2 p.m. Eastern Time to discuss contract implementation details. For the next 7 hours, we prepare for conversations that will determine whether our theoretical capabilities can transform into actual production facilities that meet federal requirements. But first, I have a different kind of preparation to complete. At 11:30 a.m., I drive across Detroit to Harper Manufacturing for what I know will be the most important conversation of my professional life. The security guard waves me through the front gate with the casual recognition of someone who has watched me grow up around this facility. The parking lot contains the same pickup trucks and work vans I remember from childhood visits, symbols of an industrial culture that values practical experience over theoretical innovation. Mrs. Chen greets me with her usual warmth, though I notice her expression contains a subtle curiosity that wasn't present during previous visits. Madison, honey, your father didn't mention you were coming by today. He's in his office reviewing some contract proposals. Actually, Mrs. Chen, I was hoping to speak with him about contracts too. Could you let him know I'm here? She picks up her desk phone and speaks in the hushed tones that office managers use to announce unexpected visitors. Mr. Harper? Madison is here to see you. Yes, sir, I'll send her right back. The walk down the hallway feels different this time, each step carrying me toward a conversation that will reshape our relationship permanently. The photographs of 3 generations of Harper Innovation line the walls like witnesses to what's about to unfold, silent testament to the family legacy that will be redefined in the next few minutes. My father's office door stands open, and I can see him behind his desk reviewing what appears to be a thick contract document. His expression carries the satisfaction of someone whose strategic planning has reached a successful conclusion, completely unaware that his assumptions about competitive landscape are about to be challenged fundamentally. Madison, this is a pleasant surprise, he says, looking up from the contract with genuine warmth. I was just reviewing the final details of our partnership agreement with Kellerman Industries. The Department of Defense contract should be announced any day now. I take a seat in the visitor's chair, placing a manila folder on my lap while studying the man who raised me to value honesty and hard work while systematically concealing information that could have transformed both our careers. The irony of this moment, his confidence about a contract that has already been awarded to someone else, almost makes me hesitate before proceeding. Dad, I wanted to talk to you about the Department of Defense contract. I know it's been a major focus for Harper Manufacturing over the past year. His eyebrows rise slightly, and he leans back in his chair with the patient expression that fathers use when daughters venture into topics beyond their perceived expertise. It has indeed. 8 months of preparation, equipment investments, partnership negotiations, the biggest opportunity our industry has seen in decades. What would you say if I told you that contract has already been awarded? The question hangs in the air between us like a challenge to everything he believes about government, procurement timelines, and industry insider knowledge. His expression shifts from patient attention to mild confusion as he processes the implications of what I'm suggesting. Madison, sweetheart, federal contracting doesn't work that way. Awards are announced through official channels, and Kellerman's government relations team would have been notified immediately if any decisions had been made. I open the manila folder and extract a printed copy of the contract award notification, sliding it across his desk with the same deliberate movement I used 8 months ago when presenting my rejected proposal. The official defense logistics agency letterhead seems to catch the light from his office window as his eyes scan the document. Harper Dynamics has been selected as the prime contractor, I say quietly, watching his face as the reality penetrates his assumptions about who competes in his industry. The contract was awarded this morning. Performance begins July 1st. The silence that follows feels like the moment between lightning and thunder, when the air itself seems to hold its breath before releasing accumulated tension. My father reads the notification twice, his expression shifting from confusion to disbelief to something approaching recognition that his understanding of recent events has been fundamentally incomplete. Harper Dynamics, he repeats, his voice carefully controlled. I'm not familiar with that company. When did they submit a proposal? February 15th. The same deadline as Harper Manufacturing's submission through the Kellerman partnership. He sets the notification down and looks at me with an intensity one haven't seen since childhood, when he suspected I was hiding something significant but couldn't quite identify what secrets I might be keeping. The pieces of a puzzle he didn't know existed begin assembling themselves in his mind. Madison, how do you know about Harper Dynamics' proposal submission? This level of detail about federal contracting timelines isn't something you would encounter in casual research. I reach into the manila folder again, this time extracting Harper Dynamics business registration documents, tax identification paperwork, and corporate structure filings. Each document carries my signature as Chief Executive Officer, creating an undeniable paper trail that connects my name to the company that just won the contract he expected to receive. I know about Harper Dynamics because I founded the company 8 months ago. The proposal was submitted under my leadership, using technologies I developed after you dismissed my ideas as impractical pipe dreams.
The transformation in his expression occurs gradually, like watching sunrise illuminate a landscape that was hidden in darkness. Confusion gives way to comprehension. Disbelief transforms into recognition, and paternal condescension evolves into something approaching professional respect. "You founded a manufacturing company?" he asks, his voice carrying a note of incredulity that would be insulting if it weren't so predictable. "Madison, government contracting requires expertise that takes years to develop. You can't just decide to compete for federal contracts without understanding regulatory requirements." "You're absolutely right," I agree, opening the folder to reveal additional documentation. "That's why I recruited Jennifer Walsh, former Defense Logistics Agency contracts officer, to guide our procurement strategy, and Carlos Mendoza from Ford's Sustainable Manufacturing Division to lead technical development, and Dr. Sarah Kim from the Environmental Protection Agency to handle regulatory compliance." Each name lands like evidence in a case he's only beginning to understand. The careful preparation, the systematic approach to capability development, the strategic thinking that mirrors his own methodologies. All of it executed by the daughter he assumed was searching for entry-level marketing positions. "Where did you get the capital for this venture? Manufacturing equipment, facility costs, personnel expenses? Starting a company requires substantial investment that you simply don't have access to." "I use the same approach you taught me for any complex project. Break it into manageable components and execute systematically. Small business loans backed by personal guarantees, equipment leasing arrangements, facility rental in Detroit's industrial district, where space cost $1,800 a month instead of $18,000. The manila folder yields more evidence with each explanation. Bank statements showing business account activity, equipment lease agreements, facility rental contracts, payroll records for our small but expert team. Every document reinforces the reality that his assumptions about my capabilities and activities have been comprehensively wrong. The technology demonstrations that won the contract were developed in a warehouse 20 minutes from here. While you were implementing sustainable automation through partnership with Kellerman Industries, I was designing systems that exceed environmental standards you won't be required to meet until 2030. He picks up our business registration documents, studying the incorporation date with the focused attention of someone trying to reconstruct a timeline that challenges everything he believed about recent events. August 15th. You filed for business registration 2 weeks after our meeting in this office.
The same meeting where you laughed at my proposal for sustainable manufacturing automation and suggested I pursue more practical career options. The words carry no accusation or bitterness, simply factual accuracy that highlights the disconnect between his assessment of my ideas and the federal government's evaluation of those same concepts when properly presented. The irony speaks for itself without requiring emotional emphasis. "Madison, He starts to speak, then stops, apparently recognizing that conventional responses aren't adequate for circumstances this unprecedented. "I had no idea you were capable of something like this." "I know," I reply simply. That was the problem. The conversation that follows occurs in territory neither of us has navigated before, where traditional father-daughter dynamics collide with professional realities that redefine our relationship permanently. He asks questions about technical specifications, business planning, competitive strategy, treating me for the first time as someone whose expertise merits serious consideration. The transformation feels both satisfying and melancholy, validation for years of underestimation combined with sadness that recognition required such dramatic proof of competence. This is the conversation we could have had 8 months ago if he had been willing to see his daughter as something more than an idealistic dreamer whose ambitions exceeded her capabilities. The Kellerman partnership was supposed to be our entry into defense contracting, he admits, his voice carrying the weight of someone whose strategic assumptions have been fundamentally challenged. Michael Kellerman convinced me that established relationships were essential for competing against industry giants. Established relationships matter, I acknowledge, but they're not sufficient when competing against superior technology delivered through more efficient processes. Federal procurement increasingly favors innovation over familiarity, especially when innovation comes with cost savings and environmental benefits. The explanation feels like teaching rather than competing, sharing insights that could help him understand why his approach succeeded in previous decades but struggles against competitors who design solutions specifically for contemporary challenges. My phone buzzes with a reminder about the 2 p.m. conference call with Defense Logistics Agency officials. The time for explanation has reached its natural conclusion. The time for implementation begins now. Dad, I need to leave for a contract implementation meeting, but I wanted you to hear about this directly rather than reading about it in industry publications.
He nods slowly, still processing information that requires fundamental revision of his assumptions about manufacturing competition and family capabilities. Madison, I owe you an apology. I underestimated your potential in ways that prevented us from working together when collaboration could have benefited both our companies. I appreciate that, I say, standing up and collecting the documents that have just redefined our relationship. But I'm not here seeking apologies. I'm here because Harper Dynamics will need subcontractors for various program components, and Harper Manufacturing has capabilities that could be valuable for specific applications. The offer hangs between us like a bridge across the gap that has separated our professional worlds. He taught me to value strategic thinking and systematic planning. Now I'm offering to apply those principles in ways that benefit both our companies while acknowledging the expertise he brings to manufacturing challenges. You're offering Harper Manufacturing subcontractor opportunities on your federal contract? I'm offering Harper Manufacturing the chance to compete for subcontractor opportunities based on capabilities and competitive pricing, the same evaluation criteria that apply to any potential supplier. The distinction matters more than he might immediately recognize. This isn't family favoritism or emotional reconciliation disguised as business partnership. It's professional acknowledgement that his manufacturing expertise has value independent of our personal relationship, combined with clear understanding that merit determines business decisions regardless of family connections. As I walk toward his office door, he calls my name one final time. Madison, I'm proud of what you've accomplished. I should have said that 8 months ago. The words carry weight that formal apologies couldn't provide, acknowledgement that transcends business success to address the fundamental issue that created distance between us, his inability to recognize my potential before external validation made denial impossible. Thank you, Dad. That means more than you know. The drive back to Harper Dynamics headquarters feels like traveling between different worlds, each representing fundamentally different approaches to innovation, competition, and family relationships. The conversation that just concluded marks the end of one chapter and the beginning of something unprecedented in our family's 3-generation history. For the first time, a Harper will lead rather than follow, innovate rather than imitate, and prove that the next generation's vision can exceed the previous generation's achievements when given the opportunity to flourish. The news breaks in the Detroit Business Journal at exactly 9 a.m. on Thursday morning, 2 days after my conversation with my father. The headline reads, "Local startup lands $847 million defense contract, upset victory over industry giants." Below it, a photograph shows me standing beside our prototype automation controller in the warehouse that everyone assumed was just another abandoned industrial space. The article spreads through Detroit's manufacturing community like wildfire through dry timber. By noon, my phone has received 47 calls from industry contacts, venture capital firms, and reporters seeking interviews about what the business press is calling the biggest upset in federal contracting history. Jennifer Walsh fields most of the media inquiries from our makeshift communications center, her federal contracting experience proving invaluable in managing attention that could either boost our credibility or create distractions from contract implementation. The key is controlling the narrative, she explains during our emergency communications strategy meeting. We want recognition for technical innovation, not sensationalism about family drama. But family drama proves impossible to avoid when the story involves a daughter's company winning a contract that her father's business expected to receive. The journal article includes quotes from industry analysts who frame the outcome as generational change disrupting established relationships, innovation triumphing over institutional advantages, and small business success validating federal procurement policies designed to prevent monopolistic concentration. Harper Dynamics represents exactly the kind of innovative supplier that government procurement should encourage, says Dr. Rebecca Martinez, a federal contracting specialist at Wayne State University. Established manufacturers assumed their relationships and experience guaranteed contract awards, but the Defense Department chose technical superiority over political connections. The analysis stings my father's professional reputation in ways that extend far beyond lost revenue. For 30 years, Richard Harper has been recognized as a strategic thinker who anticipated industry trends and positioned his company accordingly. The perception that he was outmaneuvered by his own daughter threatens the professional identity that has defined his career. The consequences manifest quickly through his business relationships. Kellerman Industries terminates their partnership agreement within hours of the journal article publication, citing fundamental changes in competitive landscape that require strategic realignment. The termination leaves Harper Manufacturing without the government contracting expertise that justified their equipment investments and facility modernization. Michael Kellerman's public statement adds insult to financial injury. Kellerman Industries congratulates Harper Dynamics on their contract award and looks forward to competing against innovative companies that represent the future of American manufacturing. The diplomatic language cannot disguise the underlying message that my father's company has been relegated from partner to potential competitor in future procurement competitions. The ripple effects extend through Detroit's manufacturing ecosystem as suppliers, customers, and competitors reassess relationships based on new market realities. Companies that previously viewed Harper Manufacturing as a strategic ally begin questioning whether their interests align with a firm that missed the industry's most significant opportunity. Meanwhile, Harper Dynamics faces the overwhelming challenge of scaling from four-person startup to prime contractor capable of managing an $800 million federal program. The warehouse that housed our prototype development must transform into a legitimate manufacturing facility equipped to meet Defense Department quality assurance standards and production schedules. Carlos Mendoza leads our technical team expansion, recruiting engineers from Ford, General Motors, and smaller manufacturers whose talents have been underutilized by companies resistant to innovative approaches. We're building something completely new, he tells each prospective hire. Not just another manufacturing facility, but a demonstration that sustainable automation can exceed traditional performance metrics. The recruitment process reveals unexpected advantages of our startup status. Experienced professionals frustrated by corporate bureaucracy and risk-averse management teams view Harper Dynamics as an opportunity to implement solutions that established companies consider too ambitious or experimental. Dr. Sarah Kim oversees our regulatory compliance infrastructure, working with federal inspectors to establish quality assurance protocols that exceed Defense Department requirements. Her EPA background provides credibility with government auditors who scrutinize new contractors more intensively than established suppliers. Compliance isn't just about meeting minimum standards, she explains during our weekly team meetings. It's about proving that innovation enhances rather than compromises reliability. Every process we implement must demonstrate that sustainable manufacturing delivers superior results. Jennifer Walsh manages the complex relationship between rapid growth and federal oversight, ensuring that our expansion maintains the transparency and accountability that government contracting requires. Her insider knowledge of procurement psychology helps us anticipate concerns before they become problems. Federal contract officers want success stories they can defend to congressional oversight committees. Our job is proving that their decision to choose Harper Dynamics was brilliant rather than risky. The human side of our rapid expansion creates challenges that business school case studies rarely address. Carlos brings his wife and 2 young children to Detroit from Michigan's Upper Peninsula, relocating his family based on faith in our company's potential. Sarah sells her house in Washington, D.C., and moves to a city she's never lived in, trusting that environmental engineering expertise will find applications in automotive manufacturing. These personal sacrifices add weight to professional responsibilities that extend far beyond financial success. We're not just building a company, we're validating the decisions that talented people made to bet their careers on our vision. The pressure intensifies during our first quarterly review with Defense Logistics Agency officials, conducted via secure video conference that connects our warehouse office with procurement oversight teams in Columbus and Washington. The formal evaluation process requires detailed reporting on personnel hiring, equipment acquisition, facility development, and quality assurance implementation. Harper Dynamics appears to be meeting development milestones ahead of schedule, observes Colonel Patricia Williams, the program's military oversight officer. However, production targets for year 2 represent significant scaling challenges. How do you plan to manage the transition from prototype development to full manufacturing capability? My response draws on every lesson learned from watching my father navigate complex business challenges, combined with insights gained through 8 months of systematic preparation. Our modular design philosophy allows incremental capacity expansion that matches demand growth. Instead of building massive facilities that require full utilization to remain profitable, we create flexible manufacturing cells that can be replicated as program requirements increase. The explanation satisfies federal oversight requirements while highlighting advantages that traditional manufacturers cannot easily duplicate. Large companies excel at managing established processes, but struggle with the adaptability that rapidly changing defense requirements demand. 6 weeks after the contract award, Harper Dynamics receives its first major test through an unexpected crisis. A supply chain disruption affects specialized components that our automation systems require, creating potential delays that could cascade through the entire production schedule. Carlos discovers the problem during routine supplier communications, when a key vendor reports manufacturing difficulties that will delay shipments by 3 weeks. Traditional manufacturing would absorb such delays through extended schedules and penalty negotiations with customers. Instead, we demonstrate the adaptive capability that won us the contract originally. Within 48 hours, Sarah identifies alternative suppliers whose products meet our specifications. Carlos redesigns affected components to accommodate different materials, and Jennifer negotiates expedited delivery arrangements that maintain our original timeline. The crisis resolution showcases advantages that established manufacturers with rigid processes cannot replicate. When Defense Logistics Agency officials receive our updated production schedule, showing no delays despite supply chain disruptions, they began to understand why procurement officers chose innovation over experience. This is exactly the kind of operational flexibility that modern defense requirements demand, Colonel Williams notes during our next quarterly review. Established contractors often treat supply chain disruptions as force majeure events, requiring contract modifications. Harper Dynamics treated it as a design challenge, requiring creative solutions. The recognition validates our approach, while establishing credibility that extends beyond technical capabilities to include operational reliability. We're proving that innovative companies can deliver results rather than just promising theoretical improvements. However, success creates its own complications through increased scrutiny from competitors who initially dismissed our contract award as federal procurement error or political favoritism. Industry organizations question whether small businesses should receive contracts that exceed their apparent capabilities, while established manufacturers lobby for stricter qualification requirements that would prevent similar upsets in future competitions. The criticism intensifies when Harper Dynamics' 6-month performance review reveals metrics that exceed contract requirements across every measured category. Production efficiency, 23% above baseline projections. Environmental compliance scores that surpass mandatory standards by 40%. Quality ratings that eliminate rework cycles entirely. These numbers suggest either inflated reporting or unsustainable practices that will cause problems during full-scale production, claims a Manufacturing Association spokesperson quoted in industry publications. No company achieves this level of performance improvement without cutting corners somewhere. The accusations force us to open our facility for independent audits that verify our claimed achievements through comprehensive inspection and testing. Federal quality assurance teams spend 3 days examining our processes, interviewing personnel, and analyzing production data to confirm that reported performance metrics reflect actual capabilities rather than statistical manipulation. The audit results vindicate our approach, while embarrassing critics who assume that superior performance must indicate deceptive reporting. Independent verification confirms that sustainable automation delivers the improvements we promised, using methodologies that can be replicated and scaled according to program requirements.
More significantly, the audit process attracts attention from other federal agencies interested in applying similar approaches to their own procurement challenges. Within weeks, Harper Dynamics receives inquiries about contracts involving different government departments, expanding our potential market beyond defense manufacturing to include civilian applications. Meanwhile, my father's company struggles with consequences that extend beyond lost contracts to include damaged relationships throughout Detroit's manufacturing community. Industry colleagues who previously sought his advice begin questioning judgment that failed to recognize his daughter's capabilities while dismissing innovations that proved commercially viable. The personal cost becomes evident during our first family dinner since the contract award, held at my parents' house on a Sunday evening that carries symbolic weight for all involved. The conversation navigates carefully around professional topics that have reshaped our family dynamics permanently. "I've been thinking about our discussion in my office," my father says during dessert, his voice carrying uncharacteristic uncertainty. "I realized that my assumptions about manufacturing innovation were incomplete." My mother, who has watched these developments with the perspective of someone outside the industry, asks questions that highlight how thoroughly our family narrative has changed. "Madison, I'm proud of what you've accomplished, but I'm also curious about what happens next. Building a company this quickly must create enormous pressure." The question addresses concerns that success itself generates. Whether rapid growth can be sustained, whether federal contracts provide stable foundation for long-term business development, whether the innovative approaches that won initial recognition can evolve to meet changing market demands. The goal was never just winning one contract, I explain, choosing words carefully to acknowledge legitimate concerns while expressing confidence in our strategic planning. Harper Dynamics represents an approach to manufacturing that addresses problems the entire industry faces. Government contracting provides validation and capital for developing solutions that private sector companies will eventually demand. The explanation reassures family members while establishing expectations that our success story has only begun to unfold. The contract that transformed our relationship represents the first chapter of a longer narrative about innovation, competition, and the evolution of American manufacturing. As the evening concludes, my father approaches me privately with a proposal that acknowledges new realities while offering possibilities for collaboration. "Madison, I know Harper Manufacturing missed this opportunity, but we've still got capabilities that could complement what you're building. If you're serious about subcontracting arrangements, I'd like to discuss specifics."
The conversation that follows occurs between equals rather than parent and child, professional peers evaluating mutual advantages rather than family members navigating generational dynamics. For the first time in our relationship, he treats my business judgment as worthy of serious consideration, while offering expertise that could benefit both our companies. The transformation feels both satisfying and bittersweet. Validation for years of underestimation, combined with recognition that our relationship has evolved beyond traditional family structures into something more complex and potentially more rewarding. The reckoning is complete, but the consequences continue to unfold with each passing day. 18 months after that humid July evening when my father dismissed my proposal as impractical dreaming, I stood in the executive conference room of Apex Industries, looking out at Chicago's skyline through floor-to-ceiling windows that reflect the morning sun like mirrors of possibility. The acquisition documents spread across the mahogany table represent the culmination of a journey that transformed both my understanding of business and my relationship with family legacy. Harper Dynamics has evolved far beyond the startup that won a single federal contract. Our sustainable manufacturing platform now serves 12 government agencies and 37 private sector clients across North America. The warehouse in Detroit has become the flagship facility in a network of 6 manufacturing centers that employ over 800 people, each location designed around the modular automation principles that first emerged in my rejected proposal. But success measured in revenue and employment represents only part of the story. The true transformation involves demonstrating that innovation-driven companies can scale rapidly while maintaining the values that inspired their creation. Every hiring decision, every client relationship, every strategic partnership reflects commitments to sustainability, ethical leadership, and inclusive opportunity that established manufacturers claimed were incompatible with competitive performance. The Harper Manufacturing acquisition occurred through negotiation rather than hostile takeover, a 6-month process that allowed my father to transition from owner to senior advisor while preserving employment for workers whose families have depended on the company for decades. The integration preserves Harper Manufacturing's traditional strengths while implementing technological upgrades that position the combined organization for continued growth. "Your father built something substantial here," Carlos Mendoza observes during our final walkthrough of the original Harper Manufacturing facility. As Harper Dynamics Chief Technology Officer, he now oversees integration of automation systems that will transform production capabilities while respecting institutional knowledge that 3 generations of workers have accumulated.
The respect in his voice reflects lessons learned about balancing innovation with tradition, disruption with continuity. Revolutionary change need not destroy valuable elements of existing systems. Instead, it can enhance and amplify capabilities that already function effectively. Dr. Sarah Kim, now our Chief Sustainability Officer, has developed environmental protocols that exceed federal requirements while reducing operational costs across all facilities. Her work proves that ecological responsibility enhances rather than constrains manufacturing efficiency, a principle that initially seemed contradictory to traditional industry thinking. The integration demonstrates something larger than business success, she explains during our quarterly sustainability review. We're showing that companies can grow rapidly while improving environmental performance, creating employment while reducing resource consumption, generating profits while contributing to community development. Jennifer Walsh has transitioned from consultant to Chief Operating Officer, her federal contracting expertise expanding to include private sector business development and international market analysis. The relationships she cultivated during our startup phase now facilitate expansion opportunities that established companies with rigid structures cannot pursue effectively. Government contracting taught us discipline that private sector companies often lack, she notes while reviewing proposals for European manufacturing partnerships. Federal oversight requires documentation, accountability, and performance measurement that create advantages when competing in commercial markets. The personal transformation parallels professional evolution in ways that business school curricula rarely address. Building a company requires developing leadership capabilities that extend beyond technical expertise to include emotional intelligence, strategic thinking, and the ability to inspire others toward shared objectives. The young woman who sat in her father's office 18 months ago, hoping for validation and support, has evolved into someone who provides validation and support to others pursuing ambitious goals. The transition from seeking approval to offering opportunity represents perhaps the most significant change in this entire journey. This evolution becomes evident during our monthly mentorship program, where Harper Dynamics executives work with students from Detroit's engineering schools, many of whom come from backgrounds that traditional manufacturing companies have historically overlooked. The program reflects commitment to inclusive opportunity that emerged from my own experience of being underestimated due to assumptions about capability and potential. Innovation requires diverse perspectives, I explained to this month's cohort of mentorship participants, young engineers whose energy and fresh thinking remind me of my own enthusiasm when first developing sustainable automation concepts. Companies that recruit from narrow talent pools limit their access to solutions that require different ways of thinking about persistent problems.
The mentorship sessions occur in our Innovation Center, a facility dedicated to research and development that has become a symbol of Harper Dynamics' commitment to continuous improvement. The space buzzes with activity as engineers, environmental scientists, and business strategists collaborate on projects that will define the next generation of manufacturing technology. Among the current initiatives, several directly address challenges that my father's generation considered intractable. Fully automated quality control systems that eliminate human error while preserving employment through job redesign rather than elimination. Carbon-neutral manufacturing processes that achieve environmental goals while reducing operational costs. Supply chain resilience protocols that prevent disruptions from cascading through production schedules. Each project reflects lessons learned from our rapid scaling experience, when crisis management became opportunity for innovation rather than excuse for performance compromises. The adaptive capabilities that distinguished us during early federal contracts now guide research into solutions for challenges that established manufacturers have accepted as inevitable business constraints. The most ambitious initiative involves developing manufacturing systems specifically designed for rapid deployment in regions affected by economic disruption. Detroit's experience with industrial decline and renaissance provides insights into how manufacturing can contribute to community revitalization rather than simply extracting value from local resources. Manufacturing has the potential to be community development, explains Maria Santos, our Director of Regional Partnerships, during a presentation about expansion plans that prioritize economically disadvantaged areas. Instead of locating facilities where costs are lowest, we can create employment where impact is greatest while maintaining competitive operational efficiency. The approach reflects values that emerged from personal experience with underestimation and exclusion. Building a company that creates opportunities for others represents the most meaningful way to transform individual success into collective benefit. These principles guide our relationship with Harper Manufacturing's integration, ensuring that acquisition enhances rather than diminishes employment opportunities for workers whose skills remain valuable despite technological evolution. Retraining programs prepared traditional machinists for automated system maintenance, while apprenticeship initiatives connect experienced workers with recent engineering graduates in mentoring relationships that transfer institutional knowledge across generational boundaries. My father's role as senior advisor has evolved into genuine partnership rather than ceremonial position, his decades of manufacturing experience complementing our innovation focus in ways that strengthen both traditional and emerging capabilities.
The monthly strategy meetings, where we discuss expansion plans and operational challenges, occur between professional equals whose different perspectives enhance decision-making quality.
I underestimated how quickly manufacturing could evolve. He admits during one recent conversation, his honesty reflecting personal growth that parallels organizational transformation. What you've built demonstrates that innovation can accelerate rather than disrupt operational excellence. The acknowledgement means more than vindication of specific technical approaches. It represents recognition that daughter and father can collaborate as colleagues whose combined expertise exceeds individual capabilities. The relationship has evolved beyond traditional family dynamics to encompass mutual professional respect that enhances rather than complicates personal connections. This evolution becomes particularly evident during industry conferences, where we present jointly about sustainable manufacturing implementation. The father-daughter partnership that once seemed impossible due to generational disagreements now demonstrates how different perspectives can synthesize into comprehensive solutions. Traditional manufacturing expertise provides the foundation for innovation implementation. I explained during our joint presentation at the National Manufacturing Association annual conference. Revolutionary change requires understanding both emerging possibilities and operational realities that determine successful implementation. The audience response reflects broader industry recognition that Harper Dynamics has achieved something unprecedented: rapid growth that enhances rather than abandon traditional manufacturing values, innovation that respects rather than dismiss institutional knowledge, disruption that creates rather than destroys employment opportunities. 6 months ago, the National Manufacturing Association selected Harper Dynamics as Manufacturer of the Year, recognizing not just financial performance, but also contributions to industry evolution and community development. The award ceremony provided an opportunity to reflect publicly on lessons learned during our journey from startup to industry leader. Success requires more than technical innovation or strategic planning, I said during the acceptance speech, looking out at an audience that included many competitors who initially dismissed our capabilities. It requires willingness to challenge assumptions about who can contribute to solving complex problems, what approaches deserve serious consideration, and how success should be measured. The speech concluded with recognition that individual achievement becomes meaningful when it enables broader positive change. Harper Dynamics exists to demonstrate that manufacturing can be sustainable, inclusive, and profitable simultaneously. Our success belongs to everyone who believed innovation could triumph over institutional inertia. Looking back across 18 months of transformation, the most significant change involves understanding that proving others wrong matters less than proving what becomes possible when artificial limitations are removed. The satisfaction comes not from my father's acknowledgement that he underestimated my capabilities, but from creating opportunities for others whose potential might otherwise remain unrealized. The conference room where this story began, where I now sit as CEO of an organization that includes both Harper Dynamics and the acquired Harper Manufacturing, represents more than professional achievement. It symbolizes the evolution from seeking validation to providing opportunity, from pursuing recognition to creating possibility. The mahogany table that once intimidated now serves as workspace for collaborative planning sessions where diverse voices contribute to strategic decisions. The windows that reflected my nervousness during early meetings now frame views of manufacturing facilities where hundreds of people implement solutions that seemed impossible when first proposed in a cluttered garage office. Outside, Detroit continues its renaissance through exactly the kind of innovation-driven manufacturing that my original proposal envisioned. The city that understands reinvention better than anywhere else in America has become home to technologies that demonstrate sustainable manufacturing's potential to drive both economic growth and environmental progress.
The journey that began with laughter at seemingly impractical ideas has culminated in proof that impractical ideas sometimes represent the most practical solutions to challenges that conventional thinking cannot address. The daughter who was dismissed as idealistic dreamer has become the CEO who acquired her father's company through merit rather than inheritance. But the true foundation we've built extends beyond business success to encompass principles that will guide future decisions. Innovation serves community development. Success creates opportunity for others. Leadership means elevating rather than diminishing those who follow, and family relationships can evolve to encompass professional partnership without sacrificing personal connection. As I signed the final integration documents that officially combine Harper Dynamics and Harper Manufacturing into a single organization, I realized that winning was never about proving my father wrong. It was about proving that possibilities exist beyond the limitations others impose, that innovation can honor tradition while transforming capability, and that the most meaningful victories create foundations for others to achieve their own seemingly impossible dreams. The story continues, but the foundation is secure. Looking for more, we've got 2 amazing stories ready for you right on screen. If this one touched you, these are absolutely worth your time. Click to watch them now. And hey, subscribe and hit that bell to never miss our latest uploads.